Good afternoon, all. The period from 1961 to 1978 is often referred to as the quote-unquote golden age of Spanish horror. It includes such directors as Jesus Franco, Jorge Ramon Larraz, and Paul Nashi, and who they refer to as the Spanish Ron Chaney, which I think is kind of funny, and many others, including Desorio's The Tombs of the Blind Dead series and The Blood Spattered Bride, which is one of my favorites. But one of the strangest, and the one that I'm going to start at, because I think of it as I believe it's the first Spanish vampire movie that I ever saw, or that I recall seeing, and that is 1973's 71, I'm sorry, erotic horror movie, Vampyros Lesbos, which I don't think I have to translate that title for you. It was directed by Jesus Franco, who often went by the name of Jess Franco, but his actual name was Jesus Franco. It stars Jesus Franco as a very sick character called Mehmet, who is a torturer. Soledad Miranda as Countess Nadine Carodi, who is sort of a uh, Carmilla Karnstein type, seductive female vampire who prefers female victims. Ewa Stromberg as Linda Westinghouse, an American, I believe she's a lawyer, actually. And she's trying to settle an estate for this character, Countess Nadine Carodi, played by Soledad Miranda. Dennis Price plays Dr. Seward, who runs a institute. Paul Muller plays Dr. Steiner, who's another doctor who works at Seward's institute. Michael Burlings plays Dr. Seward's assistant. Heidrun Kussin plays Agra, a victim of uh, Countess Carodi, who is now a mental patient at Dr. Stewart's clinic. Morpho plays the silent, mute assistant to Countess Carodi. And Andres Monales plays Omar, who is Linda Westinghouse's boyfriend. It's a very strange movie, and the soundtrack is out of this world. It was composed partly by Franco himself, and also I'll get you the names of the others because it's really cool. It's a completely psychedelic soundtrack. That's the only way to describe it. It's completely weird, bizarre. It's got backward speaking people and really strange voices. And the other two are Manfred Hubler and Siegfried Schwab. And apparently Schwab was the main composer on it. Cinematography by Manuel Merino is just gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful color. Was released in 1971 in Germany, July 1971 in Germany, and in 1973 in Spain. It's a co-production between West Germany and Spain, and the language that it was shot in is German. The copy that I saw had English subtitles, though in fact you can pretty much follow the story without needing the subtitles. But it's about this woman, Linda Westinghouse, and she and her boyfriend Omar are watching a very strange performance by an erotic dancer played by Soledad Miranda, where she makes love with a mannequin, basically. And the odd thing is that rather than do a striptease, she actually does the opposite. She actually dresses the mannequin in sexy lingerie and then sort of seduces it. And that's a lot more erotic in the way that it's done than if it had been a striptease. It's a reverse striptease, which I thought was interesting. And apparently, at one point, the mannequin actually seems to caress her, which seems a little odd, like it's alive almost. That apparently is an indication of Countess Carodi's powers as a vampire. She can animate inanimate objects. Linda is fascinated by the dancer, who is again Countess Caroline, in a different guise, and starts to hear her voice in her dreams. Saying, "Linda, come to me, Linda." Is haunted by her quite literally. Um, she has to go to. This is all shot in Turkey, by the way, and principally in Istanbul. But she has to go to the remote peninsula of Anatolia, where she has to travel to the. I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong. Kadidados Islands to handle the inheritance of Countess Nadine Karodi. And she stops over at a hotel, and the porter, Mehmet, who is played again by Jesus Franco himself, as kind of a smarmy character, warns her not to go. She says that island is only a place of insanity and death. And she says, "Meet me in the wine cellar at 8 o'clock." She goes to the wine cellar, and he's torturing a young woman. She's horrified and screams and leaves. Um, and she arrives at, goes to the island on a little boat, arrives at the island, which is very lavish. And Countess Carody has an enormous house, which has these sort of pyramid structures to it. Um, there's something interesting that I'll get back to is that there's a scorpion prowling around during the daylight, which is a little bit unusual, as scorpions are crepuscular. They don't come out during the daylight. They hunt at dusk and dawn. But this one is out during the daylight, and he's just crawling around towards this fairly large swimming pool. Both the scorpion and the swimming pool are symbols, and I'll explain that a bit later. This is very much an art film. It's not meant to be linear. It makes almost no sense from an A equals B equals C standpoint, but it's interesting. It's very well directed and very well edited and very well shot. The music is just fantastic. Soledad Miranda is a fantastically beautiful woman. Unfortunately, she only made one more film, which again was for Franco after this, called She Killed in Ecstasy, in 1970, I believe, in July, and then she died in a car accident in Lisbon in August 19th, so I believe August 17th, 1970, which is tragic because apparently Franco was going to ask her to marry him, and he never got his chance. Um, Anyway, Linda goes to the island and realizes that Countess Carody is the woman that she saw in her dreams, starts to ask her some questions about this inheritance. Apparently, it's Count Dracula's estate that she is trying to settle, and that is owed to Countess Carody. And she starts Countess Carody starts explaining to her uh, connection with Count Dracula, that as a young woman in Hungary, she was attacked by uh, soldiers and was about to be raped and apparently was raped, and Count Dracula stepped in and killed the soldier who was trying to rape her, and then turned her into a vampire, gave her his vampiric power so she'd never have to deal with this again. And from that date, she became a lesbian. She hates all men because of what happened to her, which is kind of odd that she has a male servant, Morpho, who is mute and does not ever speak, but is very devoted to her. Anyway, she and Linda are kind of playing around at her beach house. They take a naked swim, and the Countess seduces her, and they make love. And then Nadine bites Linda's neck and drinks her blood. And she wakes up to find Countess Carody lying in the swimming pool, surrounded by blood, and she just screams and faints. The next day, she wakes up in Dr. Seward's clinic with no memory of what happened to her. And Dr. Seward is treating this other patient, Agra, who was a previous woman who had encountered the Countess and who claims to have visions of her. Um, and then she wants to, she expresses her desire to Morpho to turn Linda into a vampire so that they can, live together forever, basically. Linda is compelled hypnotically to go back to the island, and they have sex again, and they're drinking each other's blood. Dr. Seward says that at the clinic, to Linda, in order to break this curse, she has to either split the vampire's head open with an axe or pierce it with a pole. And that goes against, the Spanish films don't follow the logic of other European vampire films. There's no stakes through the heart. There's no running from across. The vampires can walk around during the daylight without any problems. Countess Carody can turn herself into a bat, apparently, but we don't really see that very often. Mehmet then kidnaps Linda, and he's going to torture her the way that he did the previous woman who he killed and hung. But she convinces him that she's going to go along with him, and she wants to be tortured, etc. And he lets her go, and then she kills him. She stabs him through the head with a saw, which you don't see, but it's implied. That I thought was pretty good. She returns to the island, and Countess Carodi says, she wants to turn her into a vampire, and she refuses. She won't do it, and she kills Linda by stabbing her through the eye with a short pole. And then Morpho is so upset that he kills himself. Before that happens, Linda visits Agra's room and bids her goodbye. Omar, meanwhile, enlists Dr. Steiner's. The other doctor, Dr. Seward, wants to become a vampire, and he talks to the Countess Carodi and asks her to turn him into a vampire. She says, "No, you're my enemy." She has Morpho strangle him to death. So now only Dr. Steiner is left, Paul Muller's character, and Omar goes to Dr. Steiner and says, "Hey, Linda's my girlfriend. She's disappeared. I need you to help me find her." And so they go to the island. And meanwhile, as I said, Linda had killed Nadine, and Morpho killed himself in despair. They go out there and they find her, but Morpho and Nadine are gone. They've just vanished. And one thing I said, I was going to get back to the symbolism of the scorpion and the swimming pool. The scorpion was always around in daylight when the Countess was around. So the scorpion is a metaphor for the Countess, something dangerous, interesting, kind of compelling. And the last thing that we see of the scorpion is that it has fallen into the swimming pool. And the very last scene you see is that it's drowned and it's dead. Its legs are all curled up. And that represents the death of Countess Carodi, which I thought was kind of interesting. Again, like I said, given the fact that scorpions do not go out during the day, and they certainly wouldn't, one of them certainly would not go into a swimming pool, I don't think. They tend to avoid water. But again, the death of the scorpion equals the death of the vampire, which I thought was kind of interesting. The symbolism of water and swimming pools, again, are connected with death in a number of Franco's films, including this one and his 1973 movie Female Vampire, which starred Lina Romay, since Soledad Miranda was going to be in that, but she had died. But Lina Romay plays a very similar kind of a character, though that film is more connected to the story Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu than Dracula. So I'm not going to discuss that here. I'm going to do that in a separate video. Anyway, if you haven't seen Vampyros Lesbos, you should. By the way, there's a band by that name now as well. And apparently the movie has been remade. It was remade in 2009, apparently pretty much shot for shot. It's strange, it's dreamy. Anyway, Linda and Omar end up, and Dr. Steiner end up on a boat. Like I said, the Countess and Morpho has just completely disappeared, so there's absolutely no evidence that any of this took place outside Linda's imagination. And in fact, Omar says to her on the boat, "Don't worry about it. It was just a dream." But we hear her voiceover saying, "No, it wasn't a dream. I know it was real, but nobody else does, and I know nobody will believe me." So it ends on kind of a strange note. And we see again, it goes back to the nightclub performance, and we see that a second time as well, which is, the thing jumps in time all over the place. It is not linear. It's not really meant to make a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't, but it's still very compelling, and I highly, highly recommend it. Again, Vampyros Lesbos from 1971 by Jesus Franco, a master of Spanish horror.